Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Watering Crew Volunteer Training. Some quick Zoom basics before we begin. Please remain muted until the end of the video. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can put them into the chat and we can discuss them at the end of the presentation. The agenda for this evening is listed here. We're going to do a quick introduction. Then we're going to do a quick overview of the program. We're going to cover some logistics, some theory related to the watering. We'll cover the tools and equipment that you'll have for the program. And you may notice that a lot of the photos in this presentation are repeated from the other training sessions. It's just because we don't have any photos for this particular training program yet because it's so new. So I'm Dylan. I'm one of the program coordinators with the Friends of Fish Creek. I handle the poplar planting and the restoration work here in the park. I also work with the beaver coexistence program to wrap trees and take care of beaver dams. But tonight I'm introducing you to the watering program. So a reminder for the general volunteer training video, if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, it would be a good idea to do that as well when you're done this presentation. The general volunteering video covers many of our safety related topics, signing up for MyImpactPage, using mobile time clock, the volunteer handbook, police safety checks, first and last 5 minutes, and how we handle emergencies, as well as other general concerns related to how we handle the volunteer role. If you have questions about how that stuff works after this training, you can always ask Kumiko or myself. But if you need to know right away, this video might have answers. So why are we doing the watering in the park? Well, these programs exist for a couple of reasons. It all comes from the cows and fish inventory conducted in 2018 that indicated that in a few key areas, the poplar population in the park was nearing the end of its life. The trees only live around 80 to 100 years or so before they die, and this usually isn't an issue. But with the lack of regular flooding in certain sections, there has been a lack of regeneration to go along with it. When you couple that with the invasive species in the park that impede the other methods of regeneration, such as suckering, you end up in a situation where the only way to kickstart the forest regeneration is to plant new trees and control the invasive species. To this effect, we've been installing restoration sites and planting new trees to combat the deterioration of the forest. Where the watering crew comes into play is making sure that these efforts are successful through watering. So our goals. The first one here is to set ourselves up for success. This means that we're going to work on preparing the system that's going to be used by future volunteers. Because this is the first year, there is going to be a lot of stuff to learn. So, of course, learning about this new position as we go is going to be very important. What we don't really know what we can accomplish at this point. So we also don't know how much water we're going to go through the season. We don't know how often we'll need to service any of this equipment or how often we're going to need to add water to the barrels. There'll be more on that later. The important part for this year's program is just seeing what kind of improvements we can make and figuring out what guidelines are for all of this. So we already have a lot of vegetation in the park, and we're going to work on watering that as well as any new plantings that we're placing into the park. This year, we're expecting a lot of extra trees, so there will be plenty of work to do. Now that we know what we're doing and what the goals are, we'll be working with digital apps. That's going to make up the bulk of our work, and it's going to be the focus of a lot of our in-person training. We won't need as many tools as this, but you'll be handed a small kit to be used out in the field. And your teammates are going to be a very important part. You'll work in a team of at least 2 people, helping each other stay safe and keep the park maintained at the same time. There won't be much in the way of an art demo for ArcGIS this evening. knowing how the app works is going to be important for learning where your area is and where the water barrels are on the map. But very quickly, I'll run you through some of the functions so that you have an idea of how this works. So right now, if you pull up ArcGIS field maps on your phone, this should be just about what you get in terms of the view. All right, so this is ArcGIS field maps. This is how it'll appear on your phone in the long form here. I'm using my phone in a desktop configuration. So it's just going to look like this for now. So the first things first is we're going to cover which map to use for this work. The map is called Restoration, Monitoring, Watering. So going back here, you'll just click on the one you want to use. In this case, the restoration one, and it should pull it up. Now the compass button is a very easy way to locate yourself. Anytime you can't see your cursor, you can press this button and it should bring you right to the spot your phone is or your device. Oops. In this case, it's me right here in the office. Now, layers are another important part of how the app works. To see the layers that are currently available, you can click on this button up here, and that'll bring up a list. And then you can turn them on and off to see different layers. So say you wanted to see the photo layer. If you couldn't see it, you could toggle it on and off here. See that? So if there's something you don't see on the map that you usually do, you can click on that button there and check this list to see if somebody's turned the layer off on you. It's always a possibility. Now the grid squares. You may have noticed down here, we have a management grid. There's one specifically for the watering crew. And if we turn this on, we should be able to see this grid. There you go. So each one of these squares is about 300 meters by 300 meters. And it's at a resolution large enough, hopefully, to give volunteers enough to do in a single square during the year. Some of these squares just have a few trees in them, like 26N, but whoever gets 26M could probably do that one too with very little effort. I should also mention this year that the grassland will also need some work. So we might send some volunteers towards there as well. Now I notice we're quite a small group this year, so we'll focus on the technique more and less on getting all the trees watered. But in subsequent years, as we get better at this technique, we'll definitely, as we're adding more people, be able to water more and more trees. So clicking on these squares, you can see the information for them, the name of the square and the global ID. We'll be able to put your team name in here, and then the square will show up as a different color. And that way you'll know which square is yours, as well as where you're going precisely when you get to the park. Now, you may have noticed these points here, this one in particular with the wavy lines. This one. This point is just for the water barrels in the park. So you'll be able to see where the barrels are once they're placed out in the field, and then be able to edit the information on the water barrel so that you can add different attributes to it. You'll be able to tell us how full they are, and you'll be able to move them around as well. So by updating the point here, you can change the location, and that's just in case you need to shift it for whatever reason. You can move it that way. Once the water barrel layer has been assembled properly, you'll be able to see underneath it a list of attributes here. So there will be a field for water barrel ID. So each water barrel will have a number associated with it. There will also be a field for indicating how full the water barrel is and whether or not it needs to be refilled, so that you can indicate to us when you need it filled simply by changing the status of the water barrel. It will also make it easier for truck crews to see it, so they know how to plan a route to fill as many barrels as they can in a single pass. Now, another nice tool in ArcGIS is the measuring tool. So under the More Options menu here, you can go to Measure, and you could add points. That will give you a distance on the ground. So you can see if I move it out there, it shows me 155 meters. To get an area, you can continue to add points. Until you have at least a triangle. And then it gives you the area. Now that's pretty much it for the ArcGIS demo tonight. We'll be covering this more in depth during the in-person training. So in case you have any questions about it, you can always ask. It's a lot simpler to use than it looks. It kind of looks crowded because of all the dots and little points on it. Once you get the hang of it, it's fairly simple to use. So the watering itself. Watering is going to be done through independent volunteering this season. You will be able to come to the park whenever you have time to your grid square to do some of the watering. Trees with water boxes on them don't need direct watering per se, but it's always a good idea to check them to make sure they have water in them and that they aren't broken. For everything without a water box on it, water will be made available through the season using water barrels stored in the park. These barrels aren't out in the park yet. They're still on order following delays, but once they're in, I plan on attaching them to cinder blocks using aircraft cable to keep them in place. You'll get the water from there and then pour the water directly onto the trees using collapsible buckets. You might be asking yourself, why don't we just get the water out of the creek and put it on plants? That's a topic we are discussing, but it isn't something currently allowed. We're going to see about using an electric pump of some sort to get the water out of the barrels as well, to make things a little easier for watering. The spigots on the bottom are low tech, but they will work without additional equipment. Since we haven't done this before, your thoughts on the system's improvement are important, so let us know if you see a better way of this working. All right, tools. The tools for this job include a first aid kit, collapsible buckets, and vests. A backpack can also be made available upon request if needed. A lot of people last year used their own bags for riparian health assessments, but if you need one, you can borrow one of ours. We don't hand out cell phones, unfortunately, and while not strictly necessary, once you understand where you're going in the park, they could be handy for figuring out where all the trees are in your area and where the water barrels are while you get accustomed. So safety is the main reason we have people work in teams. If there's an emergency of any kind, there's always someone there to help. If you happen to be in the park anyways and add your observations to the map, that's fine, but you won't be able to do first and last 5 minutes records for your team's total reports. For teammates, we're assigning in person, so you can always work at a team at that time, but we'll also be covering the scheduling details and team names. And doing the assignments in person will also help you get the squares you'd like. I thought that having an assigned area to visit would make things easy, It's not a hard limit by any means, so if it makes sense to do a little section outside of your square, then by all means go for it. If you're worried about which areas are best to work in, a good way to pick squares would be to find ones that are easy for you to get to. If you already have a route in the park that you like to take, then those would make good candidates. If you want to give it some thought before the in-person training, that would be good. It's okay if there's more than one team on a square as well. Some of these squares have lots of trees, so there may need to be multiple teams on each one. I've also decided to open a committee in MyImpactPage to help coordinate all this work. You'll have to let me know that you want to opt in so that you can receive these emails, but once you do, you can email the group. That reveals your email address to everyone, however. You can also reply to emails you get from the system, which reveals your address to anyone you send the email to. So if it's only the person who sent the email, then that's the only person who sees it. Imagine people using this system to swap squares if they need to, or seeing if anybody needs a teammate mid-season, if anyone new comes on board after the training. And this is the first year we're trying this, so please be courteous to your fellow volunteers and let me know what you think of this feature. So prepping for a shift. We have here a list of items that we think would be good for you to bring with you volunteering. Clothing for the weather, of course, is always very important. If you think of anything else good to add to this list, let us know. New tools are things we can think of adding to make the program better. So we ask that while volunteering, you try not to bring anything valuable with you. Anything fragile like glass containers or precious items should be left at home. Earbuds are also items to leave behind. While bringing your dog sounds fantastic, because our barrels are stored off the pathway, having a dog in those areas could disturb wildlife using that space. So the first and last 5 minutes is an important part of the safety system that keeps us from injury. It's a list that allows us to review any potential safety items with our partners before the shift begins, and only one person must fill out that form for the shift. The last 5 minutes is also equally important. It helps us keep track of all sorts of statistics and gives you a chance to note anything that came up during your shift. Both forms are available on the website, and more information on both of these items are available in the general volunteering video. Now, the mobile time clock allows hours tracking for the field work we do. It's also important because it lets us know who's in the field. This means we can get in contact with you if there's an emergency in the park, like a fire or an animal. Make sure to start that clock before doing first 5 minutes and ending the clock after doing the last 5 minutes. The next section is on safety. The first 5 minutes form is going to have that safety checklist that we mentioned earlier, and that's going to be one of the ways we're doing it. It's also important to note that anytime there's a change in your conditions, like the weather, you should reassess to make sure you're still safe. So for instance, if you find a path that you were planning to take is flooded for whatever reason, don't go into that area if you're not prepared for it. Also, if, again, related back to the weather, if rain starts up and you're not ready for it, maybe turn back and go another day. You should always read the relevant sections of the volunteer handbook before beginning volunteering. It's important to know for all of our programs, but the ones specific for watering crew are the ones listed on the side here. Now, first aid kits are required while doing an outing and are there to be used. Band-aids on the outside of that kit are in case of small scrapes and don't need to be reported unless you need more of them. If an injury is serious enough for you to consider using more than one Band-aid, you should also consider opening the kit up. If you do use the kit, you need to fill out the report form inside that kit and get it to staff within 48 hours. Letting us know as soon as an emergency happens is also very important. There's more details on the first aid kits in the general volunteering video as well. So the field question resolution map is designed to answer questions for you while you're out volunteering in the park. It informs you what to do if something happens and you're unsure of how to handle it. 310 land is a good catch-all number if you can't remember any of the other ones. Now, you can either download a copy of this from our website or ask to have the PDF sent to you. You can also receive a hard copy on request if you'd like. So police checks are an important thing to get done anytime we have volunteers working independently from staff. And it's policy that we have them done by volunteers working with us who have access to equipment or working in groups alone with other people. It's also for building access. I understand that they can take a while to complete and sometimes circumstances make them harder to obtain. So I don't like making it a barrier to people who are just starting out with us volunteering. The convenient thing is once you get it done once, you don't need to worry about getting it done over and over again. Here's some friendly reminders for you too. Remember to read the volunteer handbook and the volunteer agreement. Your SWPs need to be reviewed before work begins. That's safe work practices. You should remember to do the first 5 minutes before you begin a shift and the last 5 minutes after you do a shift. Use the MyImpact mobile time clock to log hours. Make sure your volunteer opportunities you're participating in match your interest, skills, abilities, and limitations. Participate only within instruction and scope of an activity. And report those injuries in the event that they happen. It's also very important to stay in touch throughout the season. Feel free to contact us whenever you need. We're always happy to hear from our volunteers. So another way you can stay informed is by reading our newsletters. I'm also trying to update Instagram more often, so you can check that out as well. Here's some contact information for you. If you have any questions about our program, you can contact me at the email address, or you can call or text the phone number listed here. All right, thank you so much for watching the presentation. Now, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can ask me any questions.
Hi, Dylan. I was just looking at the police information check website there, and it says we need a letter from the organization we're volunteering for.
Yep, that's correct. So once the training is complete, those letters will be mailed out and
Okay.
you'll receive it from us. It's by email. So then once you have it, you'll be able to bring that into the police station that you need to go to get the check done, or you can submit it online. So either way, if with that letter, you'll be able to get a discount on the police check itself.
Okay, perfect. So this is not something we have to do right away then?
No.
Okay.
But it is important to have it done eventually.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? No, well, if that's all the questions, I suppose that's the end of our presentation. If you'd like to ask any further questions, of course, you can always email me. Just let me know. Thanks, everyone.